Bye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Knock Knock Eye with me, your host, Dr. Glockenflecken, your one-stop shop for all things eyeball related. You guys, I am fired up right now. I am incandescent with rage. And I'll tell you why. It's this thing happening in Eugene, Oregon. Now, I assume many of you follow me on some platform out there. You watch my videos and things. You know, I've been fairly frequently posting about what's happening in my home state in Eugene / Springfield. They're right next to each other and the thing that's going on in the emergency medicine world. If you don't know what I'm talking about and don't know why I'm so upset, I will break this down for you in the first part of this podcast episode today. So I'm going to try to get this done in like 15 minutes. And then after the break, I'll have some eyeball stuff for you. I'm going to start a new series called Eye Conditions, Eyeball Things That I Hate. My most hate. I have a theme today. Stuff I don't like. Eyeball conditions that just make me so angry. All right, so we're going to get to that after the break. So, okay, so I'll just try to lay this whole thing out up to now, because there's been things that have happened over time. All right, so the first thing is so we're talking about the PeaceHealth hospital system. So PeaceHealth has hospitals all along the West Coast. So they're in California, they're in Alaska, they might be in Washington, and certainly in Oregon. And so PeaceHealth owns a couple different hospitals in Oregon. This has to do with hospitals and the medical community in more central to southern Oregon in Eugene. So Eugene is it's like the second largest, metro area outside of Portland. So it's got like almost 200,000 residents. So it's rather large for Oregon. Now that's not large by large city in other areas of the country, but in Oregon it's a pretty big area. And so in 2023, PeaceHealth decided to close down University District Hospital, which was at that point the only, and still was, the only hospital functioning in Eugene itself. It was right there in the center of the city, but it was losing money. It wasn't doing well. And PeaceHealth decided to close it. Now, when that happened, it was opposed by many physicians because, again, it was serving a large area of Eugene. In particular, the emergency physicians that were staffing that hospital, which was the Eugene Emergency Physician Organization. So this is a physician-owned democratic group, a company that the owners were all practicing emergency physicians who live and work in the Eugene area. So they were the ones that were staffing this University District Emergency Department. They sounded the alarm to PeaceHealth staff, be like, this is a bad mistake. Like, please do not close this emergency department at the very least. If you have to close the hospital, okay, but let's find a way. Keep this emergency department going. It's serving a large area, a large metro area. We need it. This is what's going to happen if you close this down. We have this other hospital we staff called Riverbend Hospital, just a little bit down the road in Springfield. All right, all that volume is going to come over to this hospital. And if that happens, we're going to be inundated with more patients than we can handle. We don't have the staff at Riverbend. We don't have the facilities. We don't have the rooms. We don't have the space, the equipment. It goes on and on. The only thing we need all this stuff to be able to accommodate this. And so this is, now's not a good time to do this. Let's get some infrastructure in there first at this other place so that we can accommodate the increased volume that's going to happen. These emergency physicians We're telling PeaceHealth all of this. But PeaceHealth didn't listen. They closed it down. And can you guess what happened? Wait times in the emergency department at Riverbend Hospital went up. And it's been a major problem. Patients are being seen in like custodian closets and hallways and just any space where a human being can be seen by a doctor, it's being occupied by a patient. Like a serious problem. Patients aren't happy. The community's unhappy. The doctors and nurses aren't happy because nobody likes to be working in those conditions. And fast forward now to today, to this year. And not too long ago, just a few months ago, PeaceHealth decided made the decision. The CEO, Dr. McGovern, made the decision, who's the CEO at PeaceHealth Riverbend Hospital in Springfield, made the decision that at the end of the year, June 30th, when the Eugene emergency physician contract is up, that PeaceHealth would not renew that contract. Would not renew the contract of this group of 41 MDs who had been staffing that hospital, as well as the former university district, as well as a couple of other ones in the area, who had been staffing the area's emergency departments for 35 years. They said, nope, sorry, you're done. Well, first they said, we'll accept, this is what they do. We'll accept proposals. Come to us with a proposal. We'll elicit proposals from other groups and we'll award it to whoever has the best proposal. So the Eugene emergency physicians said, okay, PeaceHealth, all right, here's a proposal, but also look at our track record. And PeaceHealth decided, nope, you don't win it. All right. We think it should go to ApolloMD. Now, ApolloMD is what we call a contract management group. This is a thing that's been happening in emergency medicine for 20 years. And by and large, except for the people that work for these contract management groups, actually including maybe even some of them that work for these groups, people recognize this is not good for emergency medicine because a lot of them are private equity owned. And we all know what happens when private equity sinks their teeth into something in the medical field, right? They load up the companies they acquire with debt. They cut costs, which basically forces the hospitals and the clinics to dramatically cut costs in order to be able to pay the bills, be able to pay off that debt. And then oftentimes those private equity firms, they'll sell off assets. They'll sell to another private equity firm, and the people that lose are the employees and the patients, and even some of the physicians. Some of the physicians become rich beyond their wildest dreams, but some of them don't get any of that pie. So anyway, there's these big contract management groups, and what they do is they acquire a contract from a hospital like PeaceHealth, and their job is to staff that hospital's emergency department with doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs, and that's their business model. And the company that won the contract from PeaceHealth Riverbend is ApolloMD. Now, this is where it kind of gets interesting because ApolloMD makes it very clear that they are not private equity owned. We are a physician-owned group. They say it on their website. They kind of gloss over the fact that one of their co-founders is a manager in a private equity firm. All right, they're one of the co-founders of ApolloMD is a general manager in a private equity firm. And there is documentation, we know that at some point they have received private equity funding. You can look this up. But they're kind of hiding behind, they're kind of obfuscating all of that by saying, nope, we are not technically private equity owned, because that's like a bad word in healthcare to physicians. And so it's almost like you're trying to entice physicians. It's okay. Come work for this. We're better. We're not private equity owned. We won't do all the terrible things Bartholomew Banks private equity does. So they try to recruit that way. But just because you're not owned by private equity doesn't mean you don't act like private equity. And since I've been posting all of this stuff, I've gotten so many messages from people talking about their experience working for a company, for ApolloMD specifically. And people don't have nice things to say. No, I understand. Just generally, like, if people are going to be on the negativity train whenever they leave a company or whatever. So I understand that, but it's where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the kind of how I feel about this. Like, and their business model very reminiscent of private equity. All right, they come in, they hire all these locums folks to just come into the community and for a brief period of time. And their focus is efficiency. How do they do that? They cut costs. There's only so much you can bill. There's only so many. I mean, you're at the whim of it. This is not a emergency medicine. It's not a cash pay business. That's why of all the specialties in medicine, it makes the least sense for private equity, because you're not doing Botox in the emergency department. All right, you're saving lives. And so there's only so much revenue you can generate through an emergency department before you have to go to the other end of the ledger and just start cutting costs, slashing costs, firing people, laying off people, skeleton crews, skimping on resources. So I don't care if a company like ApolloMD says they're not private equity owned. They're all physician owned. I think they also have APP owned, and whatever. If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, like in my mind, it's private equity, even though it's technically not, because they're acting like it. So anyway, they get this contract, and here's what I think they were hoping would happen. I think PeaceHealth and ApolloMD was hoping that Eugene emergency physicians who live and are raising their kids in the area would say, well, we tried our best. I guess we'll just give up our practice and go join ApolloMD. I think that they were hoping that would be the case and kind of banking on the fact that that would be the case, but they didn't. What those Eugene emergency physicians did is they banded together and they said, no, we are not going to work for ApolloMD. People aren't used to doctors banding together to do stuff like this. People aren't used to doctors organizing. We typically don't play well with each other, but they are now. And so what did ApolloMD do? Of course, they just blasted out recruiting text messages and emails to almost every emergency physician out there. I know so many people that have gotten hammer texted by ApolloMD. Come to Oregon. We got, $5,000 signing bonus. We'll pay $1,000. I don't know what they're offering, but it's a lot of money because they have to entice these people. But here's a question. Is that good for patient care? I imagine if you have an emergency department, wouldn't you rather it be run by people who live and know the community? They know the ecosystem. They know the patient population. They know the specialists. They know who they're referring to. They know who they're calling at 2:00 in the morning. They know who will take care of certain issues or certain social services in the area. Or do you think it's better to have someone like ApolloMD find some random locums doc out of Boston to fly into Eugene, Oregon for 2 months, stay in a Best Western, and show up for a handful of shifts and then go home? You think that person cares about the community? I'm sure they care about their job. I'm sure they're trained to do this job, but it goes beyond that, especially when you're talking about emergency medicine. Like you want people who know the community, know the people. And that's why I'm fired up about it, because this is in my backyard. Like, I can almost like stand in my backyard and peer out over the horizon. I can almost see the devil horns of McGovern, the CEO of Riverbend Hospital. I can almost see it. It's like right there. And so I care a lot about this, obviously. This is why I'm so fired up, because this is bad for patients. And we still have no reason. I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking, well, when are you going to get to the reason why they did this? We don't have one. All right. McGovern, this guy, CEO, I forgot his first name. I think it's Jim, already said, not about finances. I actually completely agree with him, because if it was about finances, there's no way he'd want someone bringing an army of locums people in to do this job. That's going to be crazy expensive. Are you kidding me? It's going to be way more expensive than just keeping the Eugene emergency physician group. So I don't think it's about money. And he said it's not about money. He also said it's not about performance. They're doing a great job. And then all the physician staff at Riverbend Hospital, they took it upon themselves to show support for the emergency physicians by putting out a survey, and 90% plus of them voted no confidence in the CEO because of this decision. And also, which is even more telling, 98% of the nursing staff voted no confidence in the CEO, McGovern, because of this decision. That says a lot, because their jobs are not on the line. You can understand, of course, the emergency physicians are going to fight this. They're losing their practice. They're losing their autonomy. Why? Of course, like, this is not new. Like, really, Glock and Flecken? Yeah, of course they're going to fight this. Nurses don't have to. Their jobs aren't on the line. And because they support these doctors almost unanimously, we know it's not like a professionalism issue. It's not a performance issue. The nurses will tell you if they think you're doing a good job or not. All right, which is great. So it's not money. It's not performance. It's not professionalism. Like, what could it be? How can you come to any conclusion other than this is retaliation? What else could it be? I personally think, and again, I have no corroborating evidence from admin. They would never admit to this, obviously. But could it be that PeaceHealth is kind of upset with how the emergency physicians bucked up whenever they were talking about closing University District Hospital? Going public, trying to get the media involved to say this is bad for Eugene? Maybe PeaceHealth just didn't like that. And we're like, we're going to get rid of these guys as soon as we can. And contract's up. They have an out. They're going to take it. I think that's the reason. And, it's business. PeaceHealth can do this. All right. But we need to make it known that they are doing this for a bullshit reason or no reason at all, in that they are purposefully tanking the morale of their hospital and potentially jeopardizing the health of the community for ego. So shame on PeaceHealth for even doing this, setting this in motion. The 35 years they've been staffing these hospitals. The only bit of reason we've been given from the CEO is, wait times are increasing. Whose fault is that, sir? You closed the biggest emergency department down the road. What'd you think was going to happen? Right? Well, ApolloMD, they're used to staffing a 40,000 patient a year emergency department. Well, guess how many patients went through the Riverbend emergency department like over the past year? More than 40,000. So it's asinine to think that Eugene emergency physicians cannot handle the volume. They can't handle the kind of expansion we're planning for Riverbend Hospital. Don't buy it, folks. Don't buy it. And I know this is a local issue, but here's the reason why I am wanting to shine so much light on this. Actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break, and I'll tell you why this matters potentially for the rest of the country. Hey, Kristen?
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I am very well rested right now.
Are you?
Absolutely.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. How did you get so well rested?
Because I've been draping myself in cozy earth.
Oh.
Yeah, all through the nights.
Those sheets are very
the
good.
sheets and the comforter.
Mhm.
Oh my God, the comforter. So this cozy earth comforter, you feel calmer and cooler because you sleep better when you're cool.
That's right.
And it's like it's so soft. It just feels like a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you wake up, you know what you could do?
What?
You put your socks on.
Ooh.
And cozy earth has socks.
Head to toe.
It's like
cozy earth.
It's like they know that like you want to like feel like you're sleeping on a cloud and you want to be walking on a cloud.
That's right.
That's like all day. I'm on cloud 9. That's all it is. And right now you can get a 100 night sleep trial with Cozy Earth. And also a 10-year warranty. So they take care of you.
Yeah, nothing to lose.
Absolutely. Discover how care in every detail transforms simple routines into moments of true comfort and ease. Head to CozyEarth.com and use code KNOCK for up to 20% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Experience the craft behind the comfort and make every day feel intentional. Hey, Kristen.
Yeah.
Be honest. Do people think about their eyelids?
Honestly? I don't,
Okay.
unless something's wrong.
They should, because eyelids are amazing. They distribute your tears. They protect you from incoming objects. They're really important for overall eye health as well.
And we both know they can also be affected by something very common, Demodex mite.
Oh, yeah. Demodex blepharitis.
That's
when
right.
Demodex mites overgrow and they start causing problems like itchy, red, irritated eyelids with crusties.
Mm-hmm. Collarettes.
Collarettes, you got it. And everyone should know that if your eyelids aren't healthy, your eyes won't be either. That's why it's important to see an eye doctor, to get an eyelid check, which is part of a normal eye exam.
And the good news is there's a prescription eye drop treatment available for Demodex blepharitis.
It's great news. To learn more about eyelid health and Demodex blepharitis, visit miteslovelids.com. Again, that's miteslovelids.com to learn more. This ad is brought to you by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. Here's why I think this matters on a national level. Because guess what? And I'm going to get probably a lot of comments about this, that this is the same thing is happening everywhere. You think ApolloMD has taken these types of contracts before? Oh, yeah. Yeah. You think other contract management groups have done this? Other hospitals have done this? Kicked established groups to the curb? Yes, absolutely. I've heard from so many people about different places in the country. But here's why I think it's a little bit different and why I think this really does matter what happens here. Because not only are the physicians like me and obviously all the physicians in Eugene and Springfield fighting this, pretty much every physician in Oregon is fighting this, but the government is interested in this too, the state government, because Oregon in 2025 passed the Corporate Practice of Medicine Act, which severely curtailed the ability of private equity and just corporations in general from operating medical practices. And they passed that. Ben Bowman, who's a state a representative, passed this act. He did a lot of legwork. I was supportive of it. I think it's great. In part because companies like ApolloMD will use these loopholes where they'll like establish dummy companies in a state. Like they have Lane emergency physicians because it's Lane County. And then the owner of that company, practices in like Illinois. But it's all ApolloMD. Anyway, they have these loopholes, these ways of bypassing regulation, local regulation. Well, this Corporate Practice of Medicine Act was designed to close those loopholes. And so this is really the exact type of thing that bill, that law is designed to prevent. And so if the Oregon Department of Justice the Oregon health authority, if they get involved, and then it turns out the legislators decide, yep, this is in violation of the law. If the lawyers decide that and nix this thing, like that has implications potentially for other states, because other states can look at that and be like, ooh, we need that law. Look at what it prevented. It prevented local physicians from getting pushed to the side for these groups from out of state, from across the country, that don't have the community's interest in mind. Like that is potentially very valuable. And then we can pass corporate practice of medicine acts everywhere. All the states can get in on the action. So anyway, that's where we are now. And so it's in the hands, the emergency. I went to the Oregon State Capitol and listened to the Eugene emergency physicians. A lot of them showed up. They gave their testimony in a meeting with state senators, going over all this stuff. And they did an unbelievable job. I am behind them 1,000%. And I'm going to do everything I can. I'll keep making videos, keep making fun of these people. Just bringing the facts in. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. I know ApolloMD is already they are not happy with me, and that's okay. They don't have to be happy with me. I'm not happy with them. I talk about shame on PeaceHealth, shame on ApolloMD for even taking this contract. In not understanding the circumstances of what's happening. There is a place for locums doctors, you guys. There's a place for it. If you have a place that's a community that's in dire straits, they don't have doctors. The only way to get a doctor in is to hire a company to go out and find one, to recruit a doctor to come in temporarily, whatever. There's a place for this. All right. Locums is not designed for this purpose, where you have awesome physicians ready, willing, and able to continue working in their community. And instead, you're going with this company that's just going to bring locum, like temporary folks in. And guess what? It's going to be locums for like 2 or 3 years before they maybe finally have people willing to relocate and come in, like permanently, to Eugene. So don't believe anybody who says this will be good for patient care. There's no way. There's no way. So shame on ApolloMD. I don't like companies that operate like this. These are your colleagues. Come on, guys. Your colleagues you're doing this to. Okay. That's it. I'll keep you updated as we go, folks. All right. I promised you some ophthalmology. So I know it seems weird. It's like, dude, why are you so like into this? Like you're an ophthalmologist. And I don't know. You guys know how I feel about corporate medicine. You know how I feel about it. Private equity. I've pissed off a lot of my colleagues, my fellow physicians. I've pissed off a lot of them with how I talk about private equity. And I don't care. It's how much more evidence do we need? And I know, hey, for legal purposes, ApolloMD is not private equity owned. They are physician owned. All right. Walks like a duck and talks like a duck, folks. But sometimes I think we are our own worst enemy, physicians. We're not blameless in the healthcare system we have. I know it seems, I rag on insurance companies and private equity and all these things all the time. Very, very critical for good reason. But sure, we play a role. We've been enabling this. We, with our lack of ability to unite together to achieve change, by being too passive, not fundraising and joining PACs and even the potential unionization, and look where it's gotten us. Our lack of ability to organize in all respects. Like now we're cogs in the wheel. I would love for us to be able to really shape the healthcare system because we're actually seeing patients. We took an oath. Like who better than like doctors and nurses people that are doing the work of healthcare to shape the healthcare system, but we're not. And so now it's an uphill battle, and I'm going to do things like fight against this because it's something. And I hope you're all going to do the same. And I get a lot of people have been emailing me, hey, this is happening in this state. Like, can you help? I would love to. I cannot do everything. I cannot, make content for every situation out there. But this one's special to me because it's in my home state. And as my bandwidth it comes and goes, I'll be able to pick more battles as we go forward. All right, thanks for sitting and listening through all that, folks. I hope that all made sense. Okay, so ophthalmology time. All right, here's a new. I'm going to do a series. Maybe I'll alternate this. Ophthalmology things I hate and ophthalmology things I love, because I want to bring some positivity into this. Today, I'm just gonna wallow in my own anger and just go with something I hate. All right, and these are diseases that they just grind my gears. I just don't like them. They cause problems. All right, so the first thing we're going with is Pseudoexfoliation Syndrome. Now, I have talked about this before on the podcast, but it's been a while, and it's time to revisit this because I've got a couple surgeries coming up, and I'm focused, but also upset that this disease even exists because it just makes everyone's life harder. So, pseudoexfoliation is a systemic disease. It's an interesting disease. It's like it turns your eye kind of into a snow globe. It's a snow globe disease. So it's age-related systemic syndrome that targets mostly the ocular tissues, where you get this gradual deposition of fibrillar, white, flaky material, like snow in a snow globe, that starts to develop on the lens in the eye, the lens capsule, the candy coating outside of the lens, the ciliary body, the zonules, which are the strings that hold the lens in place in the eye. That'll be important here in a second. The cornea, the iris, the pupil. So many structures in the eye can be affected by this pseudoexfoliation. And when I look in the eye, I can see it. It's more common in people of Northern European ancestry. There's Scandinavia. You got a Scandinavian patient, good chance you're going to see some pseudoexfoliation. I bet they see a lot of it up there. And again, more common as you get older. So once people become cataract age, we start seeing a lot of it. And these deposits, it's these elastic fibers that just accumulate, and they're coated with these what are called glycosaminoglycan, hyaluronic acid substances, and they cause little bits of damage inside the eye. And so, what kind of damage? What does that do? Well, one thing it does is it causes the pupil to not work real well, because this affects the iris. So you imagine any place that this fibrillar material touches, think about it as it just makes it not work real well. So the iris, it doesn't move in and out. So you see a patient that doesn't dilate well for surgery. That's a problem. We need good dilation for cataract surgery. Also, it causes the lens to potentially be unstable in the eye, because that material lands on the zonules, those fibers that hold the lens in place, lands on the zonules and loosens the zonules, sometimes even breaks the zonules. So the lens is unstable, which gets to be a real big problem in cataract surgery. Knock on wood, we don't have any of that in the coming weeks with the patients that I have. Sometimes you don't know until you get in there. Now, we have ways of dealing with that. It just makes the surgery a little bit more challenging, a few more steps. But I've done a lot of this, folks, so we're pretty good at managing it at this point. Still not fun. But anyway, so it affects the zonules. It also affects the angle where the drainage system is, the trabecular meshwork. And when you start putting all this material in the angle, it can cause eye pressure to skyrocket. And so this is a form of open angle glaucoma. pseudoexfoliation glaucoma. You get all this material in the angle, plugs up the drainage system, clogs it up like hair in a drain. All that pressure is going to start building, and you got to treat that with a combination of eye drops, laser, surgery. It can be really challenging to control pseudoexfoliation glaucoma. Those pressures can get pretty high. And now I know you're probably thinking, you're probably dying for me to address this. Why pseudoexfoliation? Why not exfoliation? Well, because exfoliation syndrome is an actual thing. That's a very specific diagnosis that was described in glass blowing, or like thermal heat. So heat from glass blowing or infrared radiation exposure, which actually causes you to develop changes in the lens that look like pseudoexfoliation. But it's pseudo because it's not true exfoliation. So we actually don't really see. I've seen one case of true exfoliation. It was a perfect story. It was a glass blower. But that's very, very rare, much more rare than pseudoexfoliation. So at this point, really, pseudoexfoliation should be exfoliation, but it's not. So it's pseudoexfoliation. So there you go. That's it. We'll leave it at that. That is an eye disease that I hate. So next week, we'll come back with one I love. Maybe we'll do it. How about we do this? Because I'm running out of time now. Next week, we'll do disease I love and a disease I hate. We'll just, with all things in balance, right? So that's Knock Knock Eye. Thank you all for joining me. I am your host, Dr. Glockenflecken. Thanks to my executive producers, Aaron Cordy, Rob Gilman, and Shanti Burke. Our editor and engineer is Jason Portiso. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. Knock Knock Eye is a human content production. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Knock, knock, goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Hope you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.